Hello, miladies of inestimable value. The cruelest joke the universe ever plays is giving you a taste of someone your soul recognizes and then locking every door to reach them. Psychologists have found that the human brain lights up in the same regions during unfulfilled desire as it does during physical pain. That's why longing for someone you can't have doesn't just sting, it burns like a wound that never closes. And for Sigma females, women who rarely kneel to anyone or anything, this paradox becomes almost unbearable. Imagine being the woman who intimidates entire rooms with her silence. Yet she's the one haunted at night by the man she can't touch. It's like the hunter suddenly realizing the prey doesn't even know the chase exists. So why does the universe play this twisted game? Why give the Sigma female, a woman who already defies rules and escapes cages, the one man she can't claim? Is it punishment? A lesson? Or is it the universe's idea of dark comedy? Because let's be honest, even destiny seems to have a wicked sense of humor. Number 1. Because longing is the one war she can't win. Because longing is the one war a Sigma female can't win, it becomes the most brutal truth of her existence. She can outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast almost anyone. She doesn't need validation. She doesn't bend to social pressure. And she refuses to be chained by tradition. In nearly every area of life, she writes her own rules and wins by refusing to play the games others cling to. But when it comes to desire, real, raw, unshakable longing, the battlefield isn't outside of her. It's inside her, and that's what makes it unwinnable. When a Sigma female meets the one man she can't have, it creates a fracture she can't control. Logic doesn't soften it. Independence doesn't shield her from it. Strength doesn't erase it. Longing has no off switch, and no amount of discipline makes it disappear. She can't negotiate with it the way she negotiates with people. She can't silence it with the usual comfort of solitude. It lingers like an echo that refuses to fade, and the more she tries to starve it, the louder it becomes. This is why the universe chooses longing as her ultimate test. Every other challenge she faces is external: society's expectations, manipulative men, authority figures trying to control her. Those are easy to defeat because they live outside of her skin. But longing for the unattainable man is intimate. It's her private war, one that exposes a side of her no one ever gets to see. And because she's not used to losing, the weight of this hidden loss bends her in ways nothing else could. What makes it worse is that longing is both cruel and addictive. It hurts her, yet it keeps her alive. It reminds her she's still human, still vulnerable, still capable of wanting something so deeply it strips away all her defenses. And even though she'll never win the battle, because she'll never truly have him, she also can't stop fighting it. That paradox becomes her curse. The truth is, longing doesn't bow to power, intelligence, or self-sufficiency. It laughs at them. It's the one opponent she can't conquer, and that's why it's so devastating. For a Sigma female, the man she can't have isn't just a person. He's proof that even the strongest women have wars they're destined to lose. And sometimes, losing is the only way to remember that strength is not the absence of weakness, but the courage to carry it. Number 2, because her strength is too clean without fracture. Her strength is what people notice first. It's polished, composed, and almost intimidating in how untouchable it feels. She doesn't break down in public. She doesn't lean on others for support, and she rarely shows cracks in her armor. To the outside world, this kind of strength looks flawless, like she's built from steel. But the truth is, strength without fracture is too clean, too perfect, and almost unreal. Without vulnerability, it can start to look like an illusion instead of something lived and earned. This is why the impossible man becomes so important in her story. He isn't just someone she can't have. He's the mirror that shows her the one place she isn't invincible. He becomes the fracture in her glass, not because he destroys her, but because his presence exposes the one thing she cannot control, her own heart. Suddenly, the fortress she's built around herself has a crack running through it, and that crack proves her humanity in a way that polished perfection never could. The fracture doesn't make her weaker, it makes her real. It strips away the illusion that her strength means immunity to desire, to rejection, or to longing. It shows that her power is not the absence of weakness, but her ability to carry weakness without collapsing. People might believe she's unshakable, but the impossible man reveals that her unshakable image has a pulse behind it, one that still aches, still wants, still bleeds quietly in the dark. In a strange way, this impossible longing deepens her strength. It proves her strength isn't manufactured or staged, it's lived. Without the fracture, her power would always risk becoming sterile, like a statue carved from stone. But with the fracture, her strength is something breathing, raw, and painfully authentic. The impossible man doesn't reduce her. He completes her arc by reminding her that strength without vulnerability is just an act. The crack in the glass doesn't destroy the Sigma female. It makes her dangerous in a different way, because now her strength isn't just admired, it's understood. And when strength is real instead of flawless, it has a gravity that no one can ignore. Number 3. Because desire without control humiliates her. Because desire without control humiliates her, the Sigma female faces a truth she spends most of her life avoiding. Control is her anchor. It's how she moves through the world without being swallowed by the noise, expectations, and games that consume other people. She is the master of her boundaries, the architect of her solitude, and the ruler of her own emotions. People rarely get close enough to shake her because she makes sure of it. But when she meets the one man she can't have, that control begins to slip. And for her, that loss isn't just uncomfortable, it's humiliating. She is used to bending situations to her will. If she wants to exit, she exits. If she wants to keep someone at a distance, they stay there. If she chooses to let someone in, it's always on her terms. But desire is the one force she can't dictate. It doesn't ask permission, it doesn't follow logic, and it doesn't care about her carefully built walls. It just strikes, sudden, raw, and completely unmanageable. And that loss of control makes her feel exposed in a way that no rejection, no failure, and no criticism ever could. The humiliation comes from the fact that she knows she can control almost everything else in her life, but not this. No amount of independence can silence the ache. No amount of rationalizing can extinguish the hunger. She could walk away, and yet the longing would follow her like a shadow she can't cut off. For someone who prides herself on self-mastery, that's devastating. It forces her to confront a part of herself she hates, the part that isn't above raw need. But the universe doesn't send her this experience to destroy her. It sends it to strip away her illusion of total dominance. Control is powerful, but it can become a prison if it convinces her she's above being touched, above being shaken, above being human. The impossible man humiliates her precisely because he bypasses her defenses and leaves her naked in her own desire. And here lies the paradox. The humiliation doesn't make her weaker, it makes her deeper. It reminds her that even the strongest woman can be undone by something as primal as longing. It humbles her strength, sharpens her edges, and forces her to live with the truth that not everything bends to her will. And that's what makes her real. Number 4. Because scarcity is the only thing she respects. Because scarcity is the only thing she respects, the Sigma female is often immune to the charms that capture everyone else. She doesn't chase status, she doesn't fawn over attention, and she doesn't worship what's handed out too freely. To her, abundance feels cheap, like something diluted by overexposure. She values what is rare, what demands effort, what refuses to be easily owned. That is why the unattainable man unsettles her so deeply. He embodies the one kind of scarcity she can't dismiss, because suddenly it's not about theory, it's about her own desire. Most people think the Sigma female thrives on being wanted, but the truth is, she gets bored when things come too easily. If every door opens, the act of entering loses its meaning. If every person submits to her presence, their interest feels disposable. She doesn't respect anything that doesn't challenge her boundaries or resist her gravity. But when she meets the man she can't have, something shifts. He becomes living proof that even she is not above craving the rare. And that craving is a mirror, showing her that she isn't as self-contained as she likes to believe. Scarcity has a way of amplifying value. A gemstone matters not because it's flawless, but because it's rare. A word matters not because it's loud, but because it's seldom spoken. For the Sigma female, the unattainable man becomes her gemstone, her unsaid word. His scarcity intensifies her desire until it becomes undeniable, exposing the truth that what she respects most is what resists her. This flips her usual dynamic upside down. She's used to dismissing men who try too hard or who are too available because abundance feels like clutter. But when she encounters someone whose energy isn't for sale, who withholds himself whether consciously or by circumstance, it forces her to admit a truth she doesn't like. She craves him precisely because she cannot have him. It's not conquest that excites her, it's scarcity, because scarcity demands humility. And that humility humbles her in return. It proves that for all her strength, her independence, and her mastery over herself, she is still governed by the ancient human law that we are wired to hunger for what is rare. The unattainable man doesn't just deny her access, he reveals the one truth she cannot escape. Even the Sigma female bows to scarcity. Number 5. To force her into her own shadow. To force her into her own shadow, the universe uses the impossible man like a scalpel. The Sigma female prides herself on being self-sufficient, composed, and untouchable by the emotional storms that rule other people's lives. She has spent years constructing an identity around strength and independence, often refusing to admit, even to herself, that she carries softer, messier layers underneath. But the man she can't have drags her into confrontation with those very layers. He exposes her shadow, the hidden part of her that longs, aches, and obsesses. Her independence is real, but it is also armor. Beneath it lies an intensity she doesn't often allow to surface because it feels too risky. Obsession doesn't match her image. Vulnerability doesn't fit her narrative. Need doesn't belong in the world she's created for herself. Yet desire for someone out of reach doesn't play by her rules. It tears down the distance she normally maintains. And suddenly she is face to face with feelings she would rather deny than acknowledge. That shadow part of her is where her contradictions live. She wants connection but fears dependence. She craves intimacy but despises exposure. She carries fire but hides it behind cool restraint. The impossible man flips a switch she can't control, and suddenly the fire is alive, threatening to burn holes in the walls she's built. It's not just attraction, it's the humiliation of realizing she can't fully regulate what her own heart demands. And that realization forces her to admit she is not as self-contained as she pretends to be. The shadow isn't a weakness. It's the part of her that makes her whole. But confronting it is terrifying, because it strips away the illusion of perfect independence. It shows her the sides of herself that don't fit her carefully cultivated identity. The woman who can ache for someone she can't have, who can spiral in silent obsession, who can lie awake at night replaying what she'll never touch. The impossible man doesn't exist in her life to complete her or save her. He exists to remind her that no one escapes their shadow, not even the Sigma female. The more she denies it, the louder it grows. And when he appears, he becomes the trigger that forces her to sit with the truth. Independence without honesty about her hidden desires isn't strength, it's denial. And denial can't hold forever. Number 6. Because rejection is the last humanizer. Because rejection is the last humanizer, the Sigma female is forced to feel something she almost never encounters. The undeniable truth that she is not above the limits of being human. Her presence is intimidating, her energy magnetic, and her independence so firm that most people don't even try to challenge her. She moves through life with an aura that makes her look untouchable, like someone who bends the rules of gravity and refuses to live by the emotional laws that bind others. And because so few dare to deny her, rejection becomes the only force that can cut through her illusion of invulnerability. The impossible man embodies this cut. He doesn't fall into her orbit the way others do. He doesn't shrink under her silence or race to win her approval. Whether through circumstance, choice, or indifference, he stands outside her reach, and that refusal grounds her in a way nothing else can. Rejection, in its raw form, reminds her that she bleeds like everyone else. It humbles her. It reminds her she is not a flawless construct of strength and poise, but a person who can ache, desire, and lose. For someone who prides herself on commanding her world, this is a shock to the system. Rejection is humiliation on the surface, but beneath it lies something more important, a return to humanity. Without it, she risks floating too high above reality, building an identity so untouchable that it disconnects her from the truths that make life real: fear, longing, heartbreak, imperfection. Rejection is the weight that pulls her back to earth when her independence tempts her to believe she's immune to need. This grounding matters because it saves her from herself. If everyone always bends, she never learns the contours of her own vulnerability. If no one ever denies her, she begins to believe she doesn't need anyone. But rejection interrupts that fantasy. It makes her face the ache of desire unfulfilled, the sting of not being chosen, the burn of knowing some doors stay shut, no matter how strong you are. And as painful as that is, it makes her real. The impossible man is not a punishment. He is a mirror that forces her to remember she is not a myth, not an archetype, not a flawless symbol of strength. She is a woman. And rejection is the last thread that ties her brilliance back to the fragile, beating heart beneath it. Number 7. To keep her from settling for power games. To keep her from settling for power games, the universe sends the Sigma female, the one man she can't have. She is sharper than most, more perceptive, and more self-contained. That combination makes men predictable to her. Their bravado, their charm, even their subtle manipulations all collapse under her gaze. She sees through their masks, dismantles their tactics, and if she wants to, she can win before the game even begins. But that's the problem. When everyone is easy prey, the hunt loses its thrill. What starts as conquest eventually turns into boredom, and boredom is poison to her spirit. The unattainable man breaks this cycle. He doesn't fall into her rhythm, doesn't flinch under her silence, and doesn't offer himself as another pawn in her collection. His very elusiveness resets her standards. He reminds her that genuine connection is not about proving she can have someone, but about experiencing something that exists beyond control. Suddenly, she has to face the difference between power and intimacy. One feeds her ego, the other feeds her soul. And until he appeared, it was too easy for her to confuse the two. With other men, she can dominate the dynamic, deciding when to engage, when to withdraw, and how much of herself to reveal. That power keeps her safe, but it also keeps her untouched. The impossible man, however, refuses to play. His scarcity forces her to ask, what does she really want? Another conquest to validate her sharpness, or a connection that requires her to drop the power mask and step into vulnerability. This is the paradox she cannot escape. Power is satisfying in the short term, but it leaves her hollow. Connection, on the other hand, terrifies her because it requires surrender. The unattainable man, by standing just out of reach, forces her to confront this choice. He keeps her from confusing the temporary high of winning with the lasting gravity of being known. The universe doesn't give her what she wants, it gives her what she needs, a reset button. Without the impossible man, she risks reducing relationships to strategy. With him, she is reminded that the deepest bonds aren't won, they're given freely. And that difference is everything. Number 8. Because her aura needs opposition. Because her aura needs opposition, the Sigma female cannot thrive in a world where everything bends to her presence. Her energy is magnetic, often so overwhelming that people either submit to it or retreat in awe. That kind of effortless pull sounds like a gift, but in truth, it can become a curse. When no one resists her, when every situation folds in her favor, her magnetism starts to feel suffocating, even to herself. Power without resistance loses its edge, and influence without challenge begins to rot from the inside. The unattainable man changes that. He doesn't crumble under her silence, doesn't chase her mystery, and doesn't bow to her aura. His resistance becomes the friction her energy craves, the paradox that fuels her intensity rather than dulling it. In him, she meets something that refuses to be consumed, and this creates a rare dynamic. She is finally forced to test the weight of her magnetism against a force that doesn't yield. Opposition gives her energy meaning. Without it, she risks becoming like a flame in a vacuum, brilliant but suffocated by the lack of oxygen. The impossible man is the oxygen, not because he feeds her fire directly, but because he refuses to let it consume him. He creates a boundary, and in that boundary, she discovers new depths of herself. Instead of relying on the easy victories her aura usually delivers, she must confront the fact that her magnetism is not absolute. This realization is vital, because without resistance, she risks falling into emptiness. Her aura can turn inward, becoming a weight she carries alone, suffocating her with its power. But with opposition, it transforms into something alive, something sharpened by contrast. The unattainable man doesn't weaken her glow, he gives it texture, dimension, and consequence. It's a paradox she can't ignore. The very man she cannot have is the one who restores balance to her aura. He keeps her from drowning in her own force and ensures her magnetism never becomes a curse. By standing firm against her pull, he fuels her intensity, not by submission, but by resistance. And in that resistance, she discovers the one truth she rarely admits. Strength without opposition is not strength at all, but stagnation. Number 9. To teach her that chemistry isn't strategy. To teach her that chemistry isn't strategy, the universe strips the Sigma female of one of her sharpest weapons, choice. She is accustomed to being the one who decides. She selects who enters her world, who gets her time, and who stays on the outside. For her, attraction usually feels deliberate, something she allows rather than something that overtakes her. It's a form of power, a way to keep herself from being ruled by impulse. But the impossible man tears that illusion apart. With him there is no careful calculation, no weighing of pros and cons, no logical filtering of whether he fits her standards. Attraction doesn't ask for permission, it arrives like a storm, fierce and uninvited. Suddenly, her usual strategies, distance, rationalization, control, are useless. She doesn't get to choose whether she feels drawn to him. She just is. And that lack of control infuriates her because it exposes a truth she would rather ignore. Desire is not something she owns, it's something that owns her. This is where the lesson lies. Chemistry is primal. It doesn't consult her intelligence, her independence, or her walls. It doesn't bend to the rules she's built her life around. For once, she is forced to admit that attraction operates outside the realm of strategy. It's wild, unpredictable, and brutally indifferent to what she wants to believe about herself. The impossible man embodies this chaos. He can't be chosen because he isn't available, yet her body, her mind, and her instincts react to him anyway. It's not about logic or compatibility. It's about an untamed pull that refuses to be dissected or explained. That's what makes it so destabilizing. She has spent years mastering her environment, but chemistry refuses to be mastered. And in this loss of mastery lies her growth. The impossible man reminds her that not everything in life can be engineered or managed. Some things simply happen, and the more she tries to fight them, the stronger they become. Chemistry humbles her, strips away her illusions of choice, and forces her to accept that the most powerful forces in life often arrive without strategy. And for the Sigma female, that revelation is both terrifying and unforgettable. Number 10. Because her ego must taste starvation. Because her ego must taste starvation, the universe refuses to let the Sigma female consume everything she desires. Her life, by nature, often runs on excess when it comes to validation. She doesn't chase approval like others do, but it still flows to her. Men intrigued by her silence, people drawn to her independence, admirers captivated by her presence. Her ego is constantly fed by being the one who cannot be ignored, the one who is different, the one who radiates an aura others can't replicate. In this sense, she rarely goes hungry for recognition. And like any system oversaturated with supply, it risks imbalance. That's why the impossible man exists in her story. He is the deliberate famine. He is the one thing her ego cannot touch, cannot bend, cannot consume. He doesn't crumble under her aura. He doesn't chase the way others do, and he doesn't offer himself as another victory for her collection. His absence isn't just denial, it's starvation. And that deprivation is brutal, because it forces her ego to feel something it almost never feels. emptiness. Starvation has a way of clarifying truth. When her ego is constantly fed, it grows inflated, convincing her that her independence makes her untouchable, that her presence makes her irresistible, that she always holds the upper hand. But when she is starved of the one thing she craves most, the illusion collapses. She realizes there are limits to her influence, limits to her power, limits to how much control she can exercise over desire. The impossible man becomes proof that she is not all-consuming, she is human. This hunger humbles her. It strips her strength of its polish and replaces it with something sharper, authenticity. Real strength isn't found in being endlessly fed, but in enduring the ache of emptiness without breaking. The Sigma female learns this lesson the hard way. Her ego, used to abundance, is forced to live on scarcity, and in that scarcity she grows, not through conquest, but through restraint. The universe starves her not to punish her, but to balance her. Every system, every soul needs tension to stay alive. The impossible man is her famine, the withheld feast her ego cannot devour. And in that deliberate starvation she discovers that her power doesn't come from always having, but from surviving when she cannot. Number 11. To prove she can't intellectualize everything. To prove she can't intellectualize everything, the universe uses desire like a weapon against the Sigma female's greatest strength, her mind. She has a talent for rationalizing her world, for breaking down complex situations into manageable pieces, for thinking her way around obstacles that would trap other people. Logic is her fortress, her shield, her tool for keeping chaos at bay. Whenever she feels vulnerable, she reasons her way back to stability. But when it comes to the man she can't have, that fortress crumbles. Desire doesn't care about logic, and hunger isn't solved with equations. This is what makes the experience so destabilizing. She tries to analyze the attraction, to explain it away as timing, chemistry, or even biological impulse. But the more she dissects it, the stronger it grows. Her usual tactics, detachment, distance, discipline, don't weaken the pull. Instead, desire mocks her intelligence by refusing to be solved. It's not a puzzle, it's a fire. And fires don't go out because you've mapped their flames. The Sigma female is forced to sit with the one thing she can't outthink. This is unbearable for her, because intellectual control is how she keeps herself above the fray. She can usually explain away rejection, convince herself she doesn't need what others crave, and rationalize her independence as the higher path. But when her whole body longs for someone she cannot have, no amount of reasoning silences it. She is trapped in a contradiction, the woman who outsmarts everything, undone by the simplest human truth: wanting. This confrontation humbles her. It reminds her that intellect is powerful, but it is not absolute. Some forces in life aren't meant to be managed, only endured. And in that endurance she learns something vital. Being human isn't about explaining everything away. It's about surviving what cannot be explained. The impossible man, in this sense, isn't just a person. He is the living proof that her intelligence has limits. He forces her to confront hunger as it is, raw and unfiltered, without the comfort of logic. And in doing so, he teaches her a truth she can't deny. Not every storm can be studied, and not every ache can be solved. Some must simply be felt. Number 12. To strip her of the silent throne. To strip her of the silent throne, the universe delivers the one man who refuses to kneel. Sigma females often move through life with an unspoken authority. She decides who is let in, who gets ignored, and who is exiled from her presence without a second thought. It's not arrogance, it's the natural gravity of her being. She sits in quiet command, untouchable, as if the world revolves around her silent selection process. Most men either chase her approval or crumble under the weight of her distance. But then comes the man who doesn't even approach her throne. His indifference destabilizes her more than obsession ever could. When someone doesn't ask for access, when he doesn't even try to be chosen, her sovereignty suddenly feels less secure. The throne only has power if people acknowledge it. His refusal to play the game reminds her that power is never absolute. It only exists when others agree to its rules, and this man simply doesn't. This strips her of her illusion of being untouchable. For the first time, she isn't the one deciding who stays and who goes. He doesn't line up at the gates of her attention, and he doesn't crumble under her silence. His absence becomes louder than any presence she has ever experienced. That silence isn't submission, it's rejection of her entire system. The shock isn't just about him. It's about the realization that her self-made sovereignty was never universal. The silent throne was powerful only because others accepted her as queen. The man she can't have refuses the role of subject, and in doing so, he forces her to confront the raw truth. Power loses its shine when it isn't tested, when it isn't resisted. This lesson humbles her, but it also deepens her. It reveals that real power isn't about sitting above it all, untouched and unreachable. It's about facing the sting of someone who doesn't need what you offer and realizing your identity still stands. The impossible man doesn't dethrone her. He dismantles the illusion that she was ever above the game. And in that dismantling, her strength becomes less about sovereignty and more about humanity. In the end, the impossible man isn't really about him. It's about what he awakens in the Sigma female. He strips away her illusions of control, shatters the comfort of her independence, and forces her to confront the shadow she hides from the world. He reminds her that strength without fracture is just performance, that desire doesn't bend to strategy, and that even she must bow to scarcity, rejection, and longing. Far from weakening her, these impossible battles deepen her. They prove her power isn't in being untouchable, but in surviving the ache of what she cannot have. The universe doesn't send her this man to break her. It sends him to balance her, to remind her that magnetism needs resistance, that ego needs starvation, and that chemistry defies reason. He is the paradox that keeps her real, the fire that keeps her sharp, the crack in her glass that proves her strength is not fantasy, but flesh. And maybe that's the point. She doesn't need to win every war to prove who she is. Sometimes the greatest power is learning to carry the battles that can't be won, and to walk away knowing she is still whole, still rare, and still impossible to ignore. If you found this breakdown powerful and eye-opening, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support helps us keep creating bold, no-fluff content that dives deeper than clichés. And of course, share this with someone who needs to hear it. The Sigma journey isn't about being perfect, it's about being real. If this video struck a chord with you, don't just scroll away, show some love. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss more raw, no-filter insights like this. Drop a comment and let me know which point hit you the hardest. I read every single one. Smash that like button if you got value from this. And of course, share it with someone who needs to hear the truth about Sigma females. Your support isn't just numbers, it's the fuel that keeps this channel alive and growing.